I took a shortcut home and walked into the end of my marriage. One door, one sound, one decision that changed everything. If I hadn't taken that one shortcut home, I'd still think I had the perfect life. I'd still be bragging about my wife, still calling my house home without feeling that strange twist in my gut. Funny how your whole world can split in half because you turned the wheel 2 blocks earlier than usual. Back then, though, everything looked solid. My name's Mark, and if you'd asked me a year ago, I'd have told you I was a blessed man. I had the kind of life people post about online with those little captions like my everything and feeling grateful. My wife, Emily, was the center of it. She had this laugh that made other people laugh, even if they didn't catch the joke. Blonde hair shed twist when she was thinking, a line across her nose from where her sunglasses always sat. She wasn't perfect, but she was perfect to me. We'd been married 6 years, and I honestly believed we were that couple who'd make it all the way. We had a small 2-story house in a quiet neighborhood just outside the city. Gray siding, a maple tree in the front yard that dropped a million leaves every fall. My truck in the driveway, her little SUV by the curb. On summer evenings, you could hear kids riding bikes, dogs barking, someone grilling down the street. It felt safe. It felt like the kind of place where bad things happened to other people, in other zip codes. Inside, our life had a rhythm. Saturday mornings were pancakes and music playing low in the kitchen. She'd dance around in those old college sweatpants while I flipped batter on the stove, pretending I knew what I was doing. We argued about normal stuff, whose turn it was to take out the trash, whether we really needed another throw pillow, but by bedtime, we were always on the same side again. Work was finally starting to click for me too. I ran a small marketing business out of a rented office downtown. For a long time it was just me, a secondhand desk, and a coffee pot that made more noise than coffee. The first couple of years we scraped by. We stretched paychecks, counted coupons, laughed about one day like it was some fictional holiday we were waiting to celebrate. But then things started turning. A client recommended me to another client, and that one to another. I hired my first employee. We talked about maybe, just maybe, upgrading the kitchen or taking a real vacation instead of just driving to the lake for the weekend. If you'd frozen my life right there, right before that one day, you'd see a man who honestly believed he'd done it. Built something good, something honest, something steady. A solid marriage. A growing business. A future that seemed wide open. And I had no idea that the very next good day would be the one that tore it all apart. The day everything fell apart started out like the kind you wish you could frame and hang on a wall. It was a Tuesday, nothing special on the calendar. I woke up early, beat my alarm, and for some reason everything just clicked. My presentation landed, the client loved it, and by lunch I'd closed the biggest contract my little company had ever seen. When their CEO shook my hand and said, "We're excited to work with you, Mark," I felt this wave of relief wash over me. Years of stress, doubt, and late nights suddenly felt worth it. I remember texting Emily between meetings. Me, big day. Can't wait to tell you tonight. Her, oh, I like the sound of that. It'll make something nice for dinner. Proud of you. I must read that message 3 or 4 times. That little heart at the end, I can still see it. By 3 in the afternoon, my work was done. The team was buzzing, congratulating me, talking about celebrating on Friday. I told them to head out early, enjoy the day. I grabbed my keys, feeling lighter than I had in years. On the drive home, I turned the radio up, sang along to old songs I hadn't heard since high school. The sun was out, traffic was light, and I thought, this is it. This is the turning point. We're finally there. I decided to surprise her. Normally, I got home around 6:30, 7. That day, I pulled into our street a little after 4. I remember noticing a car parked 2 houses down. Old silver sedan. At the time, it was just background noise. Neighbors had visitors all the time. I pulled into the driveway, still smiling, still thinking about how I'd tell her. Maybe I'd walk in, spin her around the kitchen, and say, "Pack a bag, we're finally taking that trip." Stuff like that. The front door was unlocked. That caught my attention for half a second, but we lived in a safe neighborhood and she was home, so I didn't think much of it. Inside, The house was quiet. No TV, no music, no clattering of pans in the kitchen. I called out, dropping my keys in the bowl by the door. You won't believe the day Eve had. No answer. I smiled to myself. Maybe she was in the shower. Maybe out back with her headphones in. I walked through the living room, my shoes soft against the rug. That's when I heard it. A muffled sound, like someone stifling a laugh or a gasp. It was faint, coming from down the hallway. Our bedroom. For a second, I thought maybe she was on a call. I almost yelled out her name again, but something in me went still. It's hard to explain. The air felt heavier. My hand actually hesitated on the hallway wall as I walked, like my body knew something my brain wasn't ready to hear. The door to our bedroom was almost closed, just a thin crack of light spilling into the hallway. I stepped closer. I heard a man's voice, low, familiar in a way I hadn't heard in years. Jason, her ex-husband. My stomach dropped so fast it made me lightheaded. I pushed the door open. There they were, in our bed, our sheets. Her face flushed, his shirt half off, both of them frozen like somebody had hit pause on a movie. For a heartbeat, maybe two, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The world shrank to that room, that bed, that one image that burned itself so deep into my mind I still see it when I close my eyes. Emily's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Jason swung his legs off the mattress, scrambling for his jeans. I just stood there in the doorway, holding my briefcase like an idiot, my perfect day shattering into pieces at my feet. I don't remember dropping the briefcase. I just remember the sound it made when it hit the hardwood. Loud, final, like a gavel. Jason was the first one to move. Hey, man, listen, he started, hands up like I had a gun on him. I didn't, but it sure felt like something in me had just been loaded. Get out, I said. My voice didn't even sound like mine. It was low, flat, controlled in a way that scared me more than if I'd been yelling. Emily scrambled off the bed, grabbing the comforter, clutching it to her chest like that was the problem. Mark, wait, just let me explain. I looked at her, really looked at her. Her hair a mess, cheeks flushed, our wedding photo on the nightstand just over her shoulder. 6 years of life together stacked up behind her. Birthdays, holidays, late-night talks. And suddenly all of it felt like props in a bad play. Get out, I repeated, this time staring at Jason. He tried to stand taller, like he was going to reason with me. Wrong move. I stepped forward, grabbed his crumpled shirt off the floor, slammed it into his chest. You don't say a word in my house, I told him. You don't look at me. You don't look at her. You get dressed and you get out, or I swear whatever he saw in my face convinced him. His bravado drained out quick. He fumbled into his jeans, almost tripping over himself. Emily kept saying my name like it was some kind of spell that could rewind the whole scene. Mark, please, it's not what you think. Really? I snapped, turning to her. Because it looks exactly like what I think. I yanked open the drawer of my nightstand, pulled out my phone, and snapped a picture. Our bed, their clothes, them. Evidence. Proof that I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't imagined this nightmare. Jason muttered something like, I'm sorry, man. On his way past me, I stepped into his path, chest to chest. You don't get to call me man, I said. You had your shot with her. You threw it away. Now you sneak into my house in the middle of the afternoon like some stray animal. You ever set foot on this property again, I'll make sure you regret it. He lifted his hands, swallowed, and squeezed by me, heading for the door. A moment later I heard it open, then slam shut. The house went quiet again, except for Emily's shaky breathing. I stood there, staring at the doorway, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. My perfect day smashed. My perfect life exposed. Mark, she whispered, stepping closer, the comforter dragging on the floor. Please, just listen. Get dressed, I said, not looking at her. You're not standing in my house wrapped in our sheets after what you just did. There was a long pause. I could feel her eyes on me, searching for the old version of me she knew. He wasn't there. She disappeared into the bathroom. I heard drawers opening, the the soft thud of cabinet doors. I walked to the window, staring out at the street, at that dumb maple tree in the front yard. The same one I used to rake around while she handed me iced tea and joked about how we needed to hire a landscaper someday. In 10 minutes, she was dressed. Jeans, sweater, hair pulled back, face pale. She stepped into the doorway like a kid waiting for a punishment. "Okay," she said quietly. "Talk to me." I turned to her and felt something settle inside me. Not calm, no, not that. More like a decision hardening into place. "There's nothing to talk about," I said. "You made your choice." Her eyes filled with tears. "It was a mistake. You don't accidentally end up in someone else's bed." I shot back. "Especially not your ex-husband's. Not in my house. Not in our room. Please," she whispered. Can we sit down? Can we?" "No." I pointed toward the front of the house. "You're leaving." She blinked. "What?" "You heard me. Grab your purse, your keys, whatever you walked in with today, and leave. Right now. This is my home too," she said, some spark of fight lighting up. "Not anymore," I answered. "They'll have a lawyer call you. Well, figure it out. But today, you don't sleep here. You don't eat here. You don't breathe under this roof." For a second I thought she might push back, dig her heels in. Instead, her shoulders slumped. She walked past me, slow, shaking. At the doorway she stopped, turned around. "Mark, I do love you," she said, voice breaking. I messed up." "You didn't mess up," I replied. "You took a wrecking ball to our life. Now you get to live with the rubble." She flinched like ID slapped her, then turned and left. A minute later, her SUV started, backed out, and disappeared down the street. I stood alone in the silent house, the smell of their betrayal thick in the air. My chest burned. My hands shook. For a while, I just walked from room to room like a ghost, picking things up and setting them down, trying to recognize my own life. Then something inside me shifted. I opened my laptop. I pulled up our bank accounts, joint cards, shared passwords. I started changing things, locking things down, taking snapshots of statements. I dug out our marriage certificate, tax returns, every document that tied our lives together. I piled it all on the kitchen table. If she wanted to blow up our marriage, fine. But I wasn't going to stand there and let the fire consume only me. That was the moment revenge stopped being some wild, angry thought in the back of my mind and started to feel like a plan. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with a pot of coffee going cold and a stack of papers in front of me, the glow from my laptop turning the room into some kind of war room. By morning, ID talked to a lawyer. He listened, quiet, as I told him what happened. I showed him the pictures, the texts, the timestamps. He wasn't shocked. That bothered me almost as much as the betrayal itself. How normal this was to him. Just another broken marriage before lunch. "We can file on grounds of adultery," he said. "You own the house before you were married, correct?" "Yeah." "And the business is in your name only?" "Yeah." He nodded like he was lining up dominoes. "Then she's in a much weaker position than she thinks. Especially if we document her leaving the home and the affair." He laid out the options. I took the harshest ones. Over the next few weeks, it stopped being a marriage and turned into a spreadsheet. Every shared thing became a line item. Every memory, a number. I shut down the joint credit cards, moved our savings into an account under my name, froze anything she could pull from. When Emily finally tried to fight back, it was like watching someone walk into a game that had already been played. My lawyer sent her the separation agreement. It was brutal, and I knew it. She'd get a small payout. No claim to the house. No claim to the business. No alimony. The car in her name, and that was about it. She showed up at the office one afternoon, eyes red, waving the papers at me. "Mark, you can't do this," she said. "You're leaving me with nothing." "You did that yourself?" I answered, not getting up from my chair. "Consider this the receipt." She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. Maybe she didn't. I wasn't entirely sure I recognized myself either. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "You made a choice," I said. "These are the consequences." "In the end," she signed. Maybe she didn't have the money to drag it out. Maybe guilt did the rest. All I know is one day I came home and her remaining things were gone, leaving pale rectangles on the walls where photos used to hang. You'd think that would be enough. It wasn't. Jason kept popping up in my head like some bad commercial. His voice in my house, his hands on my wife, that stupid silver sedan parked like it belonged anywhere near my street. I found his address without much trouble. People leave their lives all over the internet. A few clicks, a public record search, and there it was. A rundown rental on the far side of town, the same silver car sitting out front. I told myself I just wanted to see it, to see him, to prove to myself he was real and not just some demon my brain had cooked up. So one night I drove over. There it was, under a flickering streetlight. Dented fender, fading paint, a couple of old parking tickets tucked under the wiper. His car, the one he drove to my house, to my bedroom, to my life. My hands clenched on the steering wheel. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears. I sat there a long time, watching the porch, the curtains, the shadow of a TV flashing inside. What happened next, I don't dress it up. I don't pretend it was some moment of righteous justice. It wasn't. It was anger with a match. I got out of my truck. I walked over to that silver sedan. I did something I can't ever take back. A few minutes later, orange light bloomed against the dark. The car turned into a torch, heat rolling off it in waves. I stepped back into the shadows, adrenaline roaring through me, watching flames lick up the windshield, the tires sag, the glass crack. Somewhere in the house, a door flew open. Jason stumbled out onto the porch in a t-shirt and shorts, yelling something I couldn't hear over the rush in my ears. He ran toward the car, then jumped back as the heat hit him. A neighbor shouted. Someone grabbed a phone. Sirens started wailing in the distance. I slipped back to my truck, heart hammering, fingers shaking as I turned the key. As I pulled away, I caught one last glimpse of him in the rearview mirror, standing there barefoot in the street, his past and his pride going up in smoke. For the first time since that afternoon in my bedroom, I felt satisfied. Not healed. Not whole. Just like the score wasn't so one-sided anymore. On the drive home that night, the flames still dancing in my rearview mirror, I realized how thin the line was between what I'd done and what I was starting to imagine. Because I'll be honest with you, after seeing them in that bed, after watching his car burn, there was a part of me that thought, why stop there? Dark pictures flashed through my mind. Showing up at his door, waiting in a parking lot, making sure nobody ever hurt me like that again. That scared me more than anything. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my hands were shaking so hard I had to sit there with the engine off, breathing in and out, until the edges of my vision stopped pulsing. I stared at our quiet little house, the porch light ID installed, the maple trees swaying like nothing in the world was wrong, and I heard this small, stubborn voice in my head. If you keep going, you don't come back from it. So I didn't. I shut the truck off, went inside, locked the door behind me, and sat on the living room floor like someone had just dropped me out of a plane. My heart was still racing, adrenaline still buzzing, but underneath that was something else. A bone-deep exhaustion. I was tired of being angry, tired of being hurt, tired of letting them live in my head, rent-free. The cops never showed up at my door. Maybe they didn't figure it out. Maybe they had bigger problems than a burned-out sedan in a rough neighborhood. Maybe it was dumb luck. Either way, I took it as my one warning from the universe. After that, I changed the direction of my anger. I poured it into work. I took on more clients, hired another employee, stayed late at the office for reasons that had nothing to do with avoiding home and everything to do with building something that was mine and mine alone. The business grew. Slowly, then all at once. One day I looked up and realized I had a team, a steady income, and people depending on me for their paychecks. I started running again, joined a gym, put on some muscle, lost the softness I didn't know I'd been carrying. I went to therapy, quietly, no big speeches, just me in a chair telling a stranger about the shortcut I took one Tuesday afternoon that split my life into before and after. Months passed. Then a year. I saw Emily once at the grocery store. She looked smaller somehow, older around the eyes. Our carts almost collided at the end of an aisle. We froze. "Hey," she said. "Hey," I answered. There was a time when I would have unloaded on her right there, relit every old argument. Instead, I just nodded and pushed my cart past. I didn't owe her a scene. I didn't owe her anything. As for Jason, I sometimes wondered what he thought when he looked at that charred patch of street where his car used to sit. Maybe he knew it was me. Maybe he didn't. Either way, the message had been delivered. Did I take revenge? Yeah, I did. I took the house, the money, my future back. I lit up the car he drove into my life. And back then, I told myself I did everything right, that I was just settling the score. But hey Race, what I've learned sitting on the other side of it. Revenge is like fire. It feels righteous when you're cold and hurting, but it doesn't care what it burns. You have to be able to stop in time, step back before the flames jump from them to you. I stopped just short of ruining my own life along with theirs. And these days, when I lock up the office, drive home, and walk into a quiet house that actually feels like mine, I still believe I did what I needed to do back then. I just thank God I knew enough to stop when I did.